elections and campaign frenzy is high as politicians intensify efforts canvassing for the much-needed votes in a historic election. Now, each of these election cycles are characterized with peculiar prospects and challenges. And one worrying enigma that has continued to rear its ugly head time and again is electoral violence. Political violence is a cancer that eats into the very fabric of the electoral process, representing the greatest challenge to any democratic process, out to mar what ought to be a normal routine programmed event. These retrogressive acts ranging from rioting, assault, arson, ballot snatching, and sometimes even murder, as well as politically motivated terrorism. All this is possible through the proliferation of small arms and other dangerous weapons used to manipulate and intimidate the electorate, triggered by words and actions of political actors, hate speech, mudslinging, fake news, and social media reports without authentication, which triggered breakout of violence in some parts of the country, further compounded by the hydra-headed security situation in the country. But this time around, the Inspector General of Police, Usman Alkali Baba, say it will not be business as usual, as the Nigerian police and other security formations have perfected plans to curb electoral violence through the deployment of a well-coordinated and collaborated effort to cover all locations in the 176,606 polling units in the 8,809 wards of the 36 states and the FCT to ensure Nigerians are not disenfranchised. Heartwarming news, you might say, for citizens, but is this enough to suppress or serve as a deterrent to possible electoral violence by instigators of mayhem? How imperative is political education to the survival of the electoral process? How can this monster be tackled to contain the spread of violence as Nigerians prepare for the polls? These and more we shall be discussing with my guest, Ezenwa Nwago. I am Jumma Yusuf. Thanks for joining us, but first let's get the news. The 36th Ordinary Session of the African Union is underway in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, with participating heads of state and government seeking to generate greater political commitment in trade as a development agenda for the continent. President Muhammadu Buhari is leading Nigeria's delegation to the high-level summit for the last time as head of state. State House correspondent Adamawa reports that President Azali Assoumani of the Comoros took over the chairmanship of the union from his Senegalese counterpart, Macky Sall.
This year's summit of the heads of state and government of the African Union has as its theme acceleration of the African continental free trade area implementation. Participants are seeking to enhance close collaboration with all relevant organs and specialized agencies of the African Union, regional mechanisms and economic communities towards fast-tracking the implementation of the AfCFTA for the benefit of Africa's population. The AfCFTA, they say, presents a unique opportunity for the continent to attain economic emancipation, which will lead to job creation, poverty alleviation, improved welfare, and sustainable development. The opening speeches, however, touched on the various socio-economic, political, and security challenges bedeviling Africa, as well as ways and means of addressing them in the greater interests of the continent and its people.
The ties between the African Union and the United Nations have never been stronger. But I also recognize the enormous tests that Africa, and indeed our world, is facing on virtually every front. The United Nations is proud to be your partner and to work together.
It is time for Africa to feed itself and fully unlock its agricultural potential to feed the world. Until Africa tells her own stories, her image will remain distorted. In this respect, please allow me to reiterate yet again the need to establish an African Union continental media house.
The AfCFTA presents itself as a tool to be deployed by the African Union to position Africa to adequately respond to the challenges of our time. We must dare to invent the economic future of the African continent.
President Muhammadu Buhari, who addressed the summit during a closed session, made a strong case for commitment by member states to hasten the completion of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. This, he said, will go a long way in promoting fair and competitive trade relations towards diversifying their economies and stimulating regional integration with the aim of achieving sustainable growth and development. While stating emphatically that Nigeria fully embraced the spirit of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, President Muhammadu Buhari is, however, worried over the multiplicity of intellectual property bodies on the continent, which he said must be harmonized so that an effective and comprehensive One Africa market can be achieved. From Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, Adamu Sambo, NTA News.
Just before leaving for Ethiopia, President Muhammadu Buhari in a broadcast Thursday approved the continued use of the old 200 notes as legal tender, but stressed that only the Central Bank of Nigeria was authorized to receive the old 500 naira and 1,000 naira notes. Following that directive, the CBN launched a portal for bank customers to deposit their old naira notes. Muplang Dakok reports on how banks are adhering to the directive as the old 200 naira notes returns.
Alleged that deposit money banks this Saturday in some parts of the country continued to collect 500 and 1,000 naira notes from customers, contrary to the statement by the CBN that it did not direct banks to collect old notes from customers. The banks we visited in Abuja were not receiving the old notes, although one person who spoke to us off the camera said some banks within the FCT also collected the old notes earlier.
I have not seen any bank collecting 500 or 1,000. It is only 200. I'm just hearing the rumor, but to me, I have not experienced it, and I don't have any cash to deposit in the bank.
It's high time for us to make a rethink and shift this policy.
Meanwhile, the cash crunch is still unabated as only one ATM point out of the several we visited was dispensing cash.
The thing was paying quite okay, but after some time it stopped paying, the bank loaded more cash again, and I was able to cash out, and that's all. No much stress.
No sooner had we turned to leave this ATM point when the machine stopped dispensing.
They're not dispensing cash. After paying 500, it stopped. But I'm looking at it that this policy will produce a better gain for all of us.
We also caught up with a few customers who withdrew the old 200 naira notes from the bank this Saturday, in line with the directive that banks were authorized to do so. In Abuja, Muplang Dakok, NTA News.
Meanwhile, the Nigerian police force is warning groups and individuals against divisive comments and utterances capable of heating up the polity and triggering crisis in the nation. A statement by the force says the warning becomes necessary considering the perceived reactions and utterances of certain groups and individuals in an attempt to heat up the polity and spontaneously instigate the populace against the government and its policies for their peculiar interest and gains. The force enjoins the public to desist from any act of violence, hooliganism and vandalism that may jeopardize the upcoming elections. Meanwhile, just a week to the 2023 general elections, and the military is engaging major stakeholders to ensure no part of the country experiences any disturbance, especially the southeast. Governor of Imo State, Hope Uzodinma, who delivered a lecture at the symposium organized by the National Defense College in Abuja, gives detailed experience on the southeast situation and the way forward. Defense correspondent Ismail Musa reports.
Security in Imo State may just be similar across several claims, but what makes it expedient is having an incumbent governor sharing his bitter experience in a presentation titled National Security, Strategic Leadership and Development. My political experience, with emphasis on the difficult task of fighting complex security situations and to foster ties in translating this lecture into workable solutions. The state is seeking collaboration with the National Defense College to stem the tide.
I tell also in the same lecture that the support of Mr. President Muhammadu Buhari and the security agencies were able to deal with the monster called insecurity, occasioned by the activities of the unknown government. We brought it into the barest minimum, and the Imo State is relatively now peaceful.
Governor Hope hopes that As days pass by, the new platform created by this research document will assist in further developing the state and the region to its full potentials. From the National Defense College in Abuja, Ismail Musa, NTA News.
The Olu of Warri Ogiame Atuase III says the Niger Delta Development Commission NDDC's public-private partnership initiative will impact positively on the region. He stated this when the management of NDDC paid him a courtesy visit in his palace. Osinachi Abraham reports.
Managing Director NDDC Samuel Obuko laid management of the organization to the palace of the Olu of Warri Ogiame Atuase III. The visit is to solicit his support through the public-private partnership initiative instituted by the board to drive the region's development. While proposing the completion of the Koko-Heye Roads project in Warri North local government area, which would connect Warri to Escravos, the NDDC boss appeals to the monarch to assist the commission in projecting the partnership to multinational companies operating in his kingdom.
So this is part of expanding our PPP scheme. But one major project that has actually been close and dear to our hearts is we felt to make Warri Kingdom come back to life, we needed to connect Warri Kingdom to Escravos.
Atuase III commended the efforts of the NDDC in reactivating the construction of the road that leads to Escravos, noting that they would boost economic activities in the kingdom, the region, and the country at large. The monarch assures the theme of his support.
I assure you that anything that concerns development beyond the shores of Warri Kingdom, anything that concerns development in the Niger Delta, I am your number one advocate.
Ogiame Atuase III is the 21st Olu of Warri. From Warri, Osinachi Abraham, NTA News.
Now let's bring you up to speed with news in the political and electoral sphere. All is now set for the 2023 general elections. INEC Chairman Professor Mahmoud Yakubu gave the assurance after inspecting the National Collation Center and ad hoc staff undergoing training in Abuja. Mia Ogidi reports.
The 2023 general elections just a week away, and the INEC Chairman Professor Mahmoud Yakubu away from his office to the Government Secondary School, Gariki, Abuja, inspecting ad hoc staff undergoing training. From here off to the International Conference Center, Abuja, housing three major venues for the elections: the National Collation Center, the Situation Room, and Press Center.
We're going to get feedbacks from all the states, what's going on in the states, and also we'll be having press briefing. And in a few days' time, we're going to be having daily briefings here also.
Naira scarcity and the protest generated in some parts of the country, not threats to the elections, the INEC chairman assured.
But as I keep saying, we will not suffer any hindrances. What is happening around the country, the protest that you have mentioned, this is an issue that we are going to discuss with the security agencies. By this time next week, Nigerians will be voting in over 176,000 polling units nationwide. And the outcome of that process for presidential election will be compiled here, and the choice made by Nigerians for the next president of the country will also be announced at this venue.
That is an assurance coming from a confident national chairman of INEC, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, to Nigerians that next week, Saturday, 25 of February 2023, presidential and National Assembly elections will hold. That means by Sunday or Monday, Nigerians will know their president and vice president-elect, as well as members of the National Assembly. Until then, my name is Mia Ogidi from the National Collation Center, ICC, Abuja.
Thank you, Mia. Presidential candidate Bola Tinubu, APC presidential candidate Bola Tinubu has promised to consolidate on efforts to return the lost glory of Borno State if elected in next week's presidential election. He made this commitment, among others, at the APC presidential and governorship campaign rally in Maiduguri, rounding off the state rallies of the presidential candidate. Musbau Dan Wahab was there.
In Maiduguri was an unusual entourage, a visitor and a former chief host. A son of the soil, former governor of the state and serving senator was here with his principal, Ashiwaju, and other political family members to seek home support for a much greater aspiration. It was apparently a visit to fulfill all righteousness by the APC presidential campaign train as local party loyalists pulled their weight with their turnout in this frontier of the northeast. It was a full traveling list of governors and senators who were on ground to show solidarity for one of their own. Borno State residents are grateful for today, but still long for the halcyon years of yesterday when it earned its name, the home of peace. And Bola Tinubu is committing himself to this cause in addition to other social and economic development programs he plans if elected.
You have summoned the prevention, you have summoned homelessness, some people created orphans. We will take care of all of you.
We are going to protect the integrity of our people and our nation. We will improve on the basic amenities.
Borno State will not discourage anyone from voting. As for me, I have promised to move the state forward.
For the first time, Borno will be hoping to take the chance and produce an elected representative of the presidency in the next week's election. From Maiduguri, Musbau and Wahab, NTA News.
Meanwhile, the amalgamated APC support group Saturday took to the major streets of Abuja, the nation's capital, for a pre-election rally. Salio Gwanara reports that the group is the focal organization of more than 2,000 APC support groups working towards the victory of APC.
It is exactly 1 week to the presidential election, and it looks like the All Progressives Congress amalgamated support groups are already in victory mode, as showcased at a victory rally that terminated at the Buhari House, National Secretariat of the APC. Here, members were challenged to increase grassroots voter mobilization and translate their numerical strength into votes for the APC.
It's an obligation for every and each member of this party to go back to his various polling units and make sure that we have delivered the mandate of the party in producing the presidential candidate.
To ensure that up to ward level, they are there so that they can vote for our principle, guide our votes, and ensure our victory.
We've seen so much obstacles that is coming forth, but by special grace, we will keep jumping the obstacle with Tinubu, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. By His grace, we shall smile again.
Meanwhile, the APC Progressive Young Women Forum has taken their voter awareness campaign to students at the University of Abuja.
The sensitization program gave our students opportunity to learn from experts on how to, the steps to take to ensure that they exercise their franchise.
Every eligible voter and a citizen of Nigeria is required to be part of the electionary process come February 25th.
Because they must be educated on the voting process. So that's why we have come around to tell them that they should come out in mass.
Voter sensitization activities are on the increase as the nation counts down Decision Day. In Abuja, Saliu Gwanara, NTA News.
Supporters of Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi are optimistic of victory in the next Saturday election. The various solidarity groups took to the streets to galvanize support for the party. David Ire reports.
The various support groups are together to drum support for Labour Party with this show tagged Obedient Global March 2023. From the Eagle Square, the youths took to the major streets, preaching the gospel of good tidings of what Nigeria stands to gain if Peter Obi is elected before betting the show at the city gates.
Keep your faith strong. Do not be scared. Do not cower. Do not lose faith, because we shall win this election.
We are going to start now moving to the wards and polling unit on the 19th, 22 until 23rd. That is what we want to do, because it's the final push. It's now or never.
So I'm urging everybody to come out, vote for Peter Obi and secure Nigeria for yourself.
In the next 6 days, we will go to touch every single grain of sand in this country.
Vote Mama, Papa, Pikin across board. The roadshow, which is holding nationwide, has at its theme, now or never. In Abuja, David Ire, NTA News.
Still on the campaign train, the PDP presidential campaign train hit Adamawa State, home state of the candidate Atiku Abubakar. Onoto Yakubu reports that while the presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar was making another rallying call to the cause, members of 5 other political parties backed the PDP presidential ticket.
It was a homecoming for the PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar and his campaign team. Host Governor Ahmadu Umaru Fintiri of Adamawa State, who is also seeking re-election, led the charge of party stakeholders to address the supporters.
That the country is in dire need, that the country is in pieces, that we are separated. Atiku will come and do the job of unifying us. And I can assure you, no any candidate in any other party can defeat this candidate. This is what I call Adamawa formula. Unity of interest and ensuring that we perfect it. To further advance the cause of democracy and good governance in Nigeria, we, the leaders of the 5 political parties, have decided to adopt the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, I don't need to tell you about Atiku Abubakar. You know Atiku Abubakar more than myself.
The candidate, Atiku Abubakar, told the party's supporters in Adamawa that the actualization of his rescue and recovery mission will address insecurity.
To live by our promises, to make sure that we have a united country, that we have a peaceful country, that we have a buoyant economy for our country. We are looking for experienced men with the capacity, with the knowledge of Nigeria that can unite us, that can secure this country.
Atiku Abubakar expressed the confidence that his message of hope will go beyond the campaign grounds. From Yola, Adamawa State, Onoto Yakubu, NTA News.
To other matters now, Justice Halima Sadiya Muhammad has taken oath of allegiance as the substantive Chief Judge of Gombe State. Emmanuel Akile reports that Governor Muhammad Inuwa Yahya, who administered the oath, urged her to contribute to the needed transformation in the judicial system of Gombe State.
She takes oath of allegiance as the 4th substantive Chief Judge of Gombe State. Governor Muhammad Inuwa Yahya approved her appointment on the recommendation of the National Judicial Council.
The importance of having such judicial officers with high levels of experience and moral rectitude at this moment in our national history cannot be overemphasized. It is undeniable that unbridled corruption, violent crimes, and numerous other forms of criminal behaviors have bedeviled our nation.
Justice Halima Sadiya pledged to do her best in confronting the challenges in the judicial system.
With little touch here and there, I think things should go right for the judiciary. We have started introducing reforms within the 3 months that I've been in office as acting, and going forward, we'll continue to do that.
I'm the happiest person. You could see when she was sworn in, she was so emotional. That shows that she's going to do her job honestly. Without the way she was sworn in, that's the way she's going to be. And so we're happy to have a woman as a Chief Judge.
Until her appointment, she served in the position in acting capacity after the retirement of Justice Joseph Ahmad Awak in 2022. In Gombe, Emmanuel Akila, NTA News.
We'll take our first breather. When we return, our conversation on electoral violence will begin. Do stay.
Untold.
We restored democracy. We initiated due process. We created the EFCC and ICPC. We brought Nigeria out of debt by achieving $18 billion worth of relief and $30 billion overall reduction. We revived the rail system. We upgraded agriculture. We brought in the mobile phone and digitalized Nigeria. Under the PDP, the Nigerian economy was the strongest in Africa. Though Nigerians made their choice, today we all know better. Nigerians, do not despair. Hope is in the horizon. We are putting in the work and refreshing our drive to rescue and rebuild Nigeria. Together, let's make it happen. PDP. Power to the people.
I was the head boy in my primary school, senior prefect and best graduating student in my secondary school, but drug abuse almost ruined my life.
I was on an average of 2 grams of cocaine per day.
I was taking 8 ampoules of pentazosine daily.
European shisha, cocaine.
I became a user, a dealer, and a gangster.
I saw other users drowning. I knew I didn't want to be like them, but I was already trapped.
My family disowned me.
My employment was terminated.
I sold my car, sold my house. I'll go out well-dressed and return shoeless, shirtless in exchange for drugs.
I was seeing things that were not real, and I once stabbed myself because I felt something crawling under my skin.
I contacted NDLEA and started therapy.
I spent 3 months in therapy.
I spent 8 months.
It's easy to relapse, but your mind has to be stronger than the cravings.
Drugs does not love you. You are not the one using drugs. Drugs are the one using you. Say no to drug abuse.
Haruna, Bisi, Akman, Unduka, how una want to do on election day?
On election day, I go take my PVC. When I retire, they vote. I broom, I go put my hand over for Tinubu. On election day, I go take my PVC. When I retire, they vote. I broom, I go put my hand over for Tinubu.
People of Nigeria, make we all come out on election day and vote Asiwaju Bola Tinubu as president. Make Nigeria for better. Make you put your hand for APC. The party will show broom. Not forget now broom you go put your hand in. Bam!
On election day, I go take my PVC. When I retire, they vote. I go put my hand over for Tinubu.
We don't like to eat better, more nutritious meals, more veggies, but we want it tasty and easy too. No cubes, that's the secret. Made with real ingredients like chicken, parsley, and garlic, and enriched with iron, so your meals are better for you and more delicious too. That's the cocoa. Let's give it some accolades. Change your world by changing what's on your plate.
My son has always dreamt of being in the spotlight. That's why I give him Bornvita for everyday vitality that gives him the strength to pursue his dreams. Bornvita, strength to dream.
Great people of our land, at the dawn of light, did you know that while our gallant men were fighting off bandits and insurgents, we were also laying a solid foundation for the infrastructure revolution to spark the growth of our economy? Did you know that the revolution stops not with infrastructure? Now we reap harvests of progress in agriculture with more than 4 million farmers anchored to the Anchor Borrower Scheme for 23 diverse cultivations, with fertilizer revolution, rice revolution, export revolution, as we now grow what we eat and eat what we grow. Now, as we stand at this dawn of light, let us move forward with renewed hope. Let's elect Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu and Senator Kashim Shettima as President and Vice President to birth the greater Nigeria of our collective dreams.
This message is brought to you by the National Working Committee of the APC.
APC Progress!
You're welcome back. By this time next week, the mood of the nation would be that of expectation for the emergence of a president-elect. But achieving this comes with a peaceful environment where the electorate will be free to cast their ballot. In this respect, Timothy Yusuf in this report tells us measures to achieve an atmosphere devoid of electoral violence.
Call on the security, intelligence and law enforcement agencies to arrest, investigate and prosecute anyone involved in violent conduct, including incendiary statements capable of inciting the public and causing a breach of the peace contrary to the provisions of the Electoral Act.
The seemingly disturbing security situation in Nigeria, many believe, has negatively affected the conduct of elections in recent years. There have been increased militarization of the voting environment due to violence often perpetrated by supporters of desperate politicians.
Today, it is an abhorrence and crudity, if not savagery, to see state governors denying campaign venues to political parties other than their own. This is crude, undemocratic, primitive, and uncivilized.
Nigeria's situation may have become rife as elections approach. As INEC intensifies preparations, on the other hand, for this year's elections, experts observe the situation calls for concerns, and if not checked, could undermine the conduct of free and fair elections.
Beyond vote buying, there must also be decisive action against negative mobilization, incitement and violence.
While political players continue to perpetrate election violence, the proliferation of small and light weapons is considered a major threat to the polls, but government is already deploying various interventions to right off the wrong.
While security agencies strategize new measures to counter the rising wave of violence in the polity, the NSA hope that the second phase of the signing of peace accord by the National Peace Committee will be fruitful in de-escalating the violent trend.
The spate of violence in Nigeria may affect voter turnout in this year's general elections if there was no effort to check the trend. Timothy Yusuf, NTA News.
Although security operatives in Lagos are stretching their tentacles towards mopping out locally made and imported arms that could be detrimental to peaceful polls, but the responsibility of curbing election violence, key players agree, rest more on sensitizing the public on the dangers to the nation's hard-earned democracy. Michael Olale reports.
Despite gravitating towards attaining 24 years of unbroken democratic experience, Nigeria has had its fair share when it comes to election violence. It is a worrisome trend which may be seen as a means of unlawfully subverting the wish of the people, since violence at any polling unit could translate into cancellation. Hence, Lagosians believe the effect of election disturbances also rests on the shoulders of perpetrators.
If the government is able to put a strategy in place to the extent that political talks and thuggery before, during, and after election are caged, 90% of electoral violence would have been resolved.
Respondents say political parties have a lot of role to play in moderating the gesture, altercations, and dispositions of their supporters, both online and offline, before, during, and after elections.
Rhetorics of politicians, they are not helping matters.
Public analysts of the view that although the introduction of technology into the process of electing new leaders is reducing the spate of violence, but there is still need for increased sensitization.
We must partake in keeping sanity wherever we find ourselves, as INEC staff, as government agency staff, as party representatives.
Security operatives in Lagos are collaborating to nip any form of disturbances in the bud.
We're working, and cultism, thuggery, it's a problem that we have amongst our youths. These are the hands that are used sometimes for electoral violence, but we're engaging community leaders.
Stakeholders say the process to curbing election violence should be approached from a holistic point of view, with the central message amplifying the effects to the generality of Nigerians if not properly managed. In Lagos, Michael Olale, NTA News.
And joining me in the studio is Ezenwa Nwago. He's the chairman, partners for Electoral Reforms and board member Yaga. You're welcome to NTA Weekend File.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you join us. Electoral violence, or political violence, as we may call it, is a cancer. Some people call it a cancer that's eaten into the very fabric of our democratic process in Nigeria. In your opinion, why does this persist every election cycle?
Well, I think our recent experience has shown that it's on the decline, and that is because more and more election is becoming more and more competitive. Unlike in times past when politicians adopted the do or die attitude to winning. With the introduction of the smart card reader in 2011 and all of that, though in 2011 there was post-election violence, but in 2015 there was a reduction. In 2019 it came down, and in the off-cycle elections we didn't see quite a lot of that, but we saw episodic attacks in Kogi, for instance, where a woman was burnt alive, and even now in somewhere in Izikebi, where you also have another woman who was murdered and her husband injured. These are triggers of, first and foremost, intolerance, and that intolerance is a trigger for violence, where people cannot understand the concept of contests. They want to win at all costs, and that greed, I like to call it greed for power, is part of what has become something that politicians and their candidates inherited and are not being weaned off from. And the reason is because there is, if you remember, after the 2011, the Justice Lemu Committee on Election Violence was set up. The white paper was released, and as we speak, it didn't seem like...
Has it been implemented?
That's what I'm saying. So our consequence management capability is low in terms of punishing people when they do wrong, especially when we have a mindset that things that happen in politics should go with politics. But crimes committed during election are not exceptional crimes, because our laws are very replete with what should happen if you assault anybody, if you murder somebody during elections, Christmas or Salah. It doesn't make any difference. The laws are very clear what needs to happen. So, but the attitude of both the politicians themselves and those who have responsibility to call them to order has been more of let's after elections there's a lot of noise that is made about what has happened, but nobody follows through, because deterrent is important. If people go to jail for actions, that crimes they commit during elections, and that becomes an example, it will be very pointed to the fact that if you do this, you will not get away. But once people know that once they do something bad, they will get away with it, it will continue.
Well, the IGP of police says that they are good to go. Can you get your assessment on the security preparations so far?
Well, I like the things that I hear. I mean, 400 plus security agents will be deployed. When you have 190, about 93,000 polling units with a voting potential of 93 point something million people, you should know that 400,000 is inadequate. It means that there has to be other measures. You need to then rally both the traditional and moral institutions and mobilize in a way that citizens themselves understand the need to protect this democracy.
So how imperative is political, education for the...
No, it's important. So what I was talking about, I don't know if you have seen any election security plan for 2023 that you can engage. I've not seen. I may be wrong. I know there are pockets of conversations about deployments and all of those things, but there has to be a coherent document where people in the sense of transparency can say this is the national election security plan for 2023. And I've made this point severally. I don't know if there is anybody who has seen it. So political education is important, but mindset that has already been built, we need to wean ourselves off this election thing, that once it's election you can do anything and get away with it. And it is the politicians that have incentivized that idea, because they are the ones who will call the security agents, they are the ones who will try to compromise them. So the concentration should be on having a conversation with our political parties, their candidates, and say, look, it is important that we don't do anything that would truncate this hard-won democracy, because it's very important to always remember that this democracy that we have had, and this is our, I think, 5th election now, the 7th election, sorry, and that is something to be happy
proud
about.
Of 24 years of
24 years of uninterrupted civil rule. Our transition into democracy will take much more than 7 cycles of elections.
Okay, Ezema, we'll take a break now. When we return, our conversation will continue. Don't go away.
The Industrial Training Fund, ITF, in collaboration with the Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, cordially invite the general public to the official closing ceremony of the National Industrial Skills Development Program, NISDP. His Excellency, Right Honorable Barrister Simon Bakolalong, CON, the Executive Governor of Plateau State, will be the special guest of honor, while the Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Otumba Richard Adeni Adebayo, and the Minister of State for Industry, Trade and Investment, Ambassador Miriam Yalwaji Katagum, will be distinguished guests of honor. The Director General and Chief Executive of Industrial Training Fund, Sir Joseph N. Ari, will be the chief host. Date, Tuesday, 21st February 2023. Venue, ITF Multipurpose Hall, Headquarters Complex, Jos. Time, 10 a.m. Invited guests are expected to be seated by 9:30 a.m. ITF, developing the nation's human resource. Announcer, ITF Management.
Great people of our land, now as we stand at the dawn of light, did you know that while our gallant men were fighting off bandits and insurgents, we were also laying a solid foundation for the infrastructure revolution to spark the growth of our economy? Did you know that the APC government has put our trains back in motion? That we have completed and commissioned 569 combined kilometers connecting Nigerians to friends, families, and trade by trains, creating hundreds of thousands of jobs across the value chain. Now, as we stand at this dawn of light, let us move forward with renewed hope. Let's elect Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu and Senator Kashim Shettima as President and Vice President to birth the greater Nigeria of our collective dreams.
This message is brought to you by the National Working Committee of the APC.
APC Progress!
If you want to become something, become a child again. Why be a patient? If you must worry, then worry about winning. Why worry about germs? When you come home, bring tales and stories. Why bring in germs?
Shield your families from germs. When Dettol is a part of every household bucket, then you and your family can stay protected from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Everyday use of Dettol keeps my loved ones protected.
We don't like to eat better, more nutritious meals, more veggies, but we want it tasty and easy too. Knorr Cubes, that's the secret. Made with real ingredients like chicken, parsley, and garlic, and enriched with iron, so your meals are better for you and more delicious too. That's the cocoa. Let's give it some accolades. Change your world by changing what's on your plate.
My people, my name is Emeka. Meku's car mats. Let me get all this motor. I don't learn my lesson. Somebody come buy motor for my hand, carry big money, come give me. Now when we get bust, now my eye open. I don't know say that 419 be. Now when EFCC grab him, now they come grab me too. Now he make me the warn you. All of them when they do business like me, where they carry big money, when I go sometimes I go carry transfer, carry bring back. Yeah, they could shine in my eye because the special control unit against money laundering, when they call SCUMO, they don't want to say if the money pass 5 million naira for individual, no collect them. If it pass 10 million naira for company, no collect them. Can I go where? Bank. If you not do them like that, 250,000 naira for every day where this offense happen. Or they go suspend your license, or they go shut them down, pata for your hand. No talk say I know one you.
This message is from the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC.
Good morning.
Good morning. Why is your sun shining like this?
Can't you see that Hamatan season is here? We need to protect our children from this dry weather.
What about the invisible germs?
Invisible germs?
During Harmattan, it's not enough to only protect your skin. You also need protection from these invisible germs. To protect our families, we use Dettol.
Harmattan season brings a lot of germs, but Dettol with Germ Defense gives protection from up to 100 illness-causing germs. Be Dettol sure.
You're welcome back to Weekend File, and my guest, Ezenwa Nwago, Chairman Partners for Electoral Reforms and Board Member Yaga, is still seated in the studio. Let me throw this question at you. Even if the IGP says it won't be business as usual, how can we as Nigerians contribute to a peaceful pause this election period, keeping in mind that there is a hydra security problem we have in this country, and apart from electoral violence, insecurity plays a huge role. So how can we as Nigerians, ensure that we go to the polls, we vote, and we are not disenfranchised?
I think our attention should be paid more on how to manage victory and losses. Election day violence is actually very minimal. Sometimes what happens is the post-election violence. So our conversation should tailor around, how to manage victory, the humility that comes with being a victor, and the equanimity and magnanimity that we should share in loss. That conversation has never taken a center stage. So many times we just think that as you introduce technology, you reduce election day violence. But when people commit this sin of exaggeration by saying, oh, I'm going to win everywhere, and you are not winning everywhere. So, and then when you lose, your people who you have talked to then think that you actually should have won and that you've been deprived. That itself constitutes some retreat. So there has to be much more conversation about winning and losing and what to do when that happens. That's not going to happen. So that is why I'm saying both the traditional and moral institutions, I mean our churches and our mosques and our traditional rulers, will have to be activists this period, activists for peace. They must come out frontally and say, look, if you don't win today, you will win tomorrow.
But would the politicians listen to this?
The politicians have pastors. They have imams. They have traditional rulers who have given them different kinds of titles. And there are threats that can come with that. If you constitute violence, we will withdraw the traditional ruler. We will withdraw your membership in spite of whatever you think. These things are real. We saw it in Ekiti when the traditional, institution in Ekiti called in the NURTW into a meeting and said, you must guarantee free and fair non-violent election and make sure that the materials get there on time. We saw the punctuality index for the Ekiti election rise, very beautifully. So Nigerians must get into the conversation. Every sector, professional groups, NMA, MBA, the language for this period must be peace. But much more than that, there has to be level playing ground. People must lose with the confidence that they lost and that nothing was taken their way for them to lose. And people who win can pride themselves that they did, they have legitimacy because they truly got their victory from the people from whom that should come from. So winning and losing for me is a trigger for violence and the conversation that comes with it. So Peace is a multi-stakeholder engagement. Promises are not very important at this time, because in the times when we had post-election violence or even violence during elections, there were assurances, there were promises.
Yes.
So it didn't. So when you take those promises and go and sleep, if these activists for peace that I'm talking, mobilizing these activists for peace around the community, around the different stakeholders, if we're able to do that, we can at least raise the tempo for peace in our country. But the security agencies have much more role. They tell you that security is everybody's business, but everybody is not paid to secure people. You that is paid, there has to be value for money. If we are going to be paying allowances for security agencies, then we have to match it with their performance. That performance audit has to happen after elections. If we voted this amount of money for you to secure the elections, if the elections were not secured, then somebody has to pay. In terms of, and that's why I keep talking about consequence management. If you don't do your job, you have to pay. This idea of that immediately after elections, we move on, then you invite all of us here, we start explaining why things went right or why it went wrong, and everybody, the blame game will continue, and then we're always talking about lessons learned. The one we learned before, what did we do with it? Is to now unpack all of those lessons that we have learned and put them on the table and begin to tick the boxes. Which ones have we used, the lessons of the past, so that we don't repeat them and then continue a cycle of lessons learned.
Indeed, as a Wanwago, Chairman Partners for Electoral Reforms and Board Member Yaga, you've raised a lot of pertinent questions, and I believe those who are concerned are listening. Thank you so much for coming on Weekend 5.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you NTA for the good job that you do.
Thank you. We'll take a break. When we return, Sports Update is next.
Great people of our land, now as we stand at the dawn of light, did you know that out of the resourcefulness of our spirits, the APC government is leveraging sukuk bonds and tax credit schemes to deliver over 40 critical roads and bridges across the nooks and crannies of our cities, including the iconic second Niger Bridge. Oh, it must be told that we are building more seaports and airports. We are opening up more towns and communities across the geopolitical zones to more economic prosperity. Now, as we stand at this dawn of light, let us move forward with renewed hope. Let's elect Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu and Senator Kashim Shettima as President and Vice President to birth the greater Nigeria of our collective dreams.
This message is brought to you by the National Working Committee of the APC.
APC Progress!
Good morning.
Good morning. Why is your sun shining like this?
Can't you see that Harmattan season is here? We need to protect our children from this dry weather.
What about the invisible germs?
Invisible germs?
During Harmattan, it's not enough to only protect your skin. You also need protection from these invisible germs. To protect our families, we use Dettol.
Harmattan season brings a lot of germs, but Dettol with Germ Defense gives protection from up to 100 illness-causing germs. Be Dettol sure.
We don't like to eat better, more nutritious meals, more veggies, but we want it tasty and easy too. No cubes, that's the secret. Made with real ingredients like chicken, parsley, and garlic, and enriched with iron, so your meals are better for you and more delicious too. That's the cocoa. Let's give it some accolades. Change your world by changing what's on your plate.
When life gets busy, you can always rely on Go TV to make things a little easier. Upgrade to the next package and we'll boost you to a higher package for free. Go TV. Love it.
Fighting here and there, we don't want it at all. Killing people today, tomorrow, we don't want it at all. And we don't want separation. You do your own, I do my own. Make you go. Michael, no. We don't want that one. We may quarrel and disagree, but let it be on the table of dialogue. No blood, chaos, war, violence. Let us stand with our nation as one people. And we must also stand for the armed forces. They are our husbands and wives. They are our brothers and sisters. Please support the armed forces, whose lives are always on the front line to protect our nation. Nigeria is your own. Nigeria is mine. Nigeria is our own. Our uniqueness is in our oneness. Our oneness is our strength. Men do not like overconfident women. Don't touch me without my permission.
I'm a playful guy and I do get carried away sometimes.
You are selfish, manipulative, and you are a narcissist.
After all I've done for you.
What have you done for me?
Look, she called me barren.
You know my mom doesn't know any better, right?
You say that now, but then when you see your mother, you start to act like you're deaf and dumb.
You were supposed to be more careful. I've been. Clearly not enough.
You're welcome back. Sport update is next.
The Cycling Federation of Nigeria is planning early preparations for SL Kwesereya ahead of the Paris 2024 Olympic Games, even as more cyclists are expected to qualify in various categories. SM made her qualification at the just concluded CAC African Cycling Road Championship in Ghana, where she gathered the 250 needed points.
We need to make a very, very good preparation to make sure that the performance of Heze will be very, very well.
Football fans continue to express optimism as Nigeria's Flying Eagles set to begin their campaign in the Under-20 African Nations Cup tournament, built to kick off Sunday in Egypt.
They need to go in there and replicate it. Don't be too much in a hurry to score or to win.
Seven-time champions Nigeria in Group A with Senegal, Egypt and Mozambique face Senegal in their opening game Sunday. All four semi-finalists at the end of the tournament will represent Africa at the FIFA Under-20 World Cup in Indonesia. Still on football, Arsenal are back to the top of the English Premier League following a Hartford 4-2 away win against Aston Villa this Saturday. Second place Manchester City were held to the 1-0 draw by Nottingham Forest, while Chelsea were beaten at home by Southampton 1-0. Brentford also settled for a 1-0 draw against Crystal Palace. The Nigerian Armed Forces and some paramilitary agencies joined their counterparts around the world in physical activities Saturday to mark this year's International Day of Military Sports.
Of this season they're on, it's just to keep fit and to bring the armed forces together.
Meanwhile, officers and marshals of the Federal Road Safety Corps have engaged in a walk and jog to boost mental and physical alertness as the Corps celebrates at 5 years since establishment.
We want to also discharge his responsibilities, especially with the nature of work we do. You need to be healthy and fit.
The Keep Fit exercise and a novelty football match between female officers and marshals, which ended 3-1 in favor of the officers, a series of activities marking the celebration. With sports updates, I am Chukunonso Mwabweze, NTA News.
That's NTA Weekend File for this week. Thanks so much for watching. I am Jummai Yusuf.
Information is power. Everyone wants power. So feel powerful with the NTA News mobile app, the one-stop information center. Real news at your fingertip. Be the first to report by uploading first-hand information on the YouReport link, and be the first to know by simply clicking on any of the links on the sidebar for headlines, domestic and foreign news, economy, security, politics, sports, and more. Stream live on your smartphone and tablets and stay connected. It's pretty easy. Simply download NTA News app from your Google Play Store and you're good to go. NTA News mobile app, your access to real-time information.
NTA. You can't beat the reach.
NTA International, live on your TV, computer, iPad, tablet and phone. Log on to visiontv.co.uk and click on Entertainment, then NTAI. You can also download the iOS or Android app on your mobile devices to watch NTA International on the go, anywhere in the world. NTA International, your window to the world.
This is the network service of the NTA.
Nigerians, elections are here again. Let us shun violence. Let us play the game according to the rules. Do not be a thug. Say no to violence. Let's rise and defeat violence, crime, and sabotage against the peace of our nation. Nigeria is the only country we have. We must do everything to keep it united. We must avoid any act that promotes hate and disintegration. Say no to separatist movement, terrorism, fake news, hate speech, religious bigotry, and any act that tends to divide us as a nation. Watch out for strange gatherings and suspicious movements. Restrict access to sensitive documents and data, the disclosure of which may damage national security. Educate your staff and family, particularly on measures to safeguard information and report security breaches. Apply relevant legal security guidelines to protect yourself and your neighbors. Due to misinformation and wrong choices, some idle persons resort to vices in their greed to get rich quick. They resort to kidnapping, killings for rituals, and other heinous crimes. Avoid wrong use of the social media. Before you broadcast that false message, think twice. Ask whether it will promote peace or violence. For safety at home, still be security conscious. Educate your household on safety tips. Report all suspicious movements and persons to the security agencies nearest to you. Be a good citizen. Be patriotic. To pass security information, please call 0813-222-2105, 0915-339-1309, 0908-837-3514, or send a mail to dsspr@dss.gov.ng. This message is from the Department of State Services, DSS.
As the 2023 elections draw near, remember, evil prospers when good men and women only wish for peace, but never take a step to make peaceful elections happen. Are you a father? Are you a mother? What are you saying to your children as elections approach? Have you warned them not to let themselves be used to cause violence? Have you explained to them what the consequences of electoral violence might be? Do your part to make peaceful elections happen. Talk to your children. Protect them from unscrupulous politicians who want to put them in harm's way, while their own children are comfortable at home, within and outside the country. Let's join hands to make 2023 elections peaceful. This message is from the National Orientation Agency, NOAA.
Sportybet sponsors coverage of the Italian Serie A.
For monitoring and maintaining all federal roads in the country, it is the responsibility of the Federal Roads Maintenance Agency to efficiently and effectively monitor and administer road maintenance with the objective of keeping all federal roads in good and safe condition. As part of its contribution to national development, FEMA is committed to efficiency, transparency, and the evolution of the Nigerian road network, which it sees as the arteries of the nation through which the economy of the nation flows. Welcome. It's Eye on the Road, the weekly informative and educational update from the Federal Roads Maintenance Agency, where we show you the great strides the agency is making in carrying out its mandate of monitoring and maintaining federal roads.
Bad habits on our roads. Don't park trailers on the road. Don't dump refuse in the drainage. Don't vandalize manhole covers. Don't deface road infrastructure.
Don't expose piers by excavating sand from under the bridge.
Don't cut across the road.
FEMA is moving Nigeria on good roads.
A nation's road infrastructure is considered to be one of its most valuable assets, as a good road network promotes economic growth and social interaction. Nigeria's 36,000 kilometers federal road network is by far the largest and most valuable single public infrastructure asset owned by the federal government.